The Black Death. In the 14th century, a sickness called the Black Death arrived in Europe. It spread quickly and killed many people. A man named Agnolo de Tura saw the Black Death and wrote, "So many died that we all believed that it was the end of the world." By 1350, millions of people in Europe had died. The Black Death killed between 30% to 50% of the European population. Everything changed. Many skilled workers died, so there were not enough workers to make things. Nor were there enough farmers to work the land. Fortunately, it was not the end of the world as many had thought. Rebirth and Renaissance. After the darkness and death came life and light. The Black Death changed Europe in many ways. Some historians say the Black Death helped make Europe ready for a rebirth, called the Renaissance. The Renaissance was many things. For one, it was a rebirth of art and learning. Europeans looked back through time at the great cities and works of the Greeks and Romans over 1,000 years before. They wanted to know how Europe could be great again. They wanted to learn from their past. Petrarch, the light of Rome and Greece. One person who learned from Europe's past was Francesco Petrarch. He loved the books and teachings of ancient Rome and Greece. In contrast, he felt that he was living in a time of darkness, which he called the Dark Ages. Petrarch spent much of his life traveling through Europe. He found many Latin and Greek texts that had been lost. Petrarch published them again. He wanted Europe to end the Dark Ages, and he wanted to return to the light of the Romans and Greeks. Petrarch's love for old books influenced many Europeans to learn from their past. But Petrarch didn't just love books. He also loved a woman. Petrarch's love, Laura. One day at church, Petrarch saw a woman named Laura. He fell deeply in love with her. Today, we don't know much about Laura, but her name probably was Laura de Noves. She was indeed beautiful, but there was a problem. She was already married, so Petrarch showed his love for Laura in writing. He wrote hundreds and hundreds of poems and songs for her, with words like these: "When from hour to hour among the other ladies, love appears in her beautiful face." Even today, Petrarch's love songs are famous. They influenced many great writers, including William Shakespeare. Petrarch died in his home on July 19, 1374. It was one day before his 70th birthday. One popular story says that he was found dead in his library, leaning over a book. Because of his work and learning, we call Petrarch the father of the Renaissance. He created great art with words, and he helped Europeans learn from their past. Gutenberg and the power of print. For Europeans to learn from their past, people needed to read. But there was a problem. Books were expensive and hard to make. People usually copied books by writing them out by hand. A young German named Johannes Gutenberg created a new way of printing. He made a printing machine that used movable letters on metal blocks. He was the first European to be able to quickly print books. By 1482, there were about 100 printing presses in Europe. These presses helped spread knowledge quickly and accurately. People studied the art and ideas of ancient Greece and Rome. Thanks to Gutenberg, Europe began its rebirth through the power of print. New ideas and Leonardo da Vinci. New ideas were part of Europe's rebirth. One man who had many new ideas was Leonardo da Vinci. He learned from the past, but he also studied nature and the world around him. Today, we know Leonardo for his paintings, but he was also an inventor and a scientist. Leonardo filled multiple notebooks with notes and drawings. In his notes, he wrote about many things, including music, light, and the human body. He designed flying machines, robots, and even terrible weapons of war. Light, Science, and Art. Mona Lisa. Leonardo combined science and art. We can see this in his famous painting, the Mona Lisa. In Italian, the painting is also called the Laughing One. This is because of the mysterious smile on the Mona Lisa's face. The smile seems to disappear when looked at directly. There are shadows around her smile. The shadows seem soft or smoky. Leonardo described this technique as without lines or borders, in the manner of smoke. By studying light and the human body in a scientific way, Leonardo made his art come alive. He made it look like the real world. New knowledge. During the Renaissance, Europeans created art, but they also created a rebirth of knowledge and science. Leonardo da Vinci discovered new knowledge using science. He looked at the world as it really was, not as people said it was. For example, in his notes, Leonardo wrote, "The sun does not move." This may seem unimportant, but at the time, most Europeans believed that the sun moved around the earth. They believed that the earth was the center of the universe. This idea was even taught by the Roman Catholic Church. The Church followed the ideas of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who wrote that the moon and sun move around the earth. Galileo's dangerous ideas. It was difficult at that time, even dangerous, to go against the ideas of the Church. Leonardo da Vinci only mentioned the idea that the sun does not move. But in 1632, Galileo Galilei wrote a book about it. He based his ideas on the work of Nicholas Copernicus and ideas from the ancient Greeks. When church leaders read Galileo's work, they became very angry. Galileo said that the sun was the center of the universe. Church leaders questioned Galileo. They forced him to give up his ideas. They made him a prisoner in his own home. But today, we know that Galileo was right. The new way of thinking. Science. Galileo Galilei is one of the most important thinkers of the Renaissance. Albert Einstein called him the father of modern science. Like Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo referenced the books of the ancient Greeks. Galileo read the work of Aristarchus, who lived over 1,000 years before Galileo. Aristarchus said that the sun was the center of the universe. He was an ancient thinker who disagreed with Aristotle. Galileo looked at the natural world. He used mathematics to understand how the planets moved. He improved the telescope, and he looked carefully at the stars in the sky. He found real answers about the Earth and the sun, and he helped create a new way of thinking. We call it science. Money for knowledge. Renaissance thinkers developed science and art. But to do this, they also needed money. Families like the House of Medici made banks, and as they got rich, they supported art, culture, and science. In fact, in Florence, the Medici family supported Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo da Vinci. They also supported Galileo. He even worked as a teacher for the Medici children. Why the Renaissance was important. The Renaissance was a rebirth of art and a beginning of science in Europe. Thanks to people like Francesco Petrarch, Renaissance thinkers learned from the past, especially from the works of the ancient Greeks and Romans. People did this by reading great books. Thanks to Johannes Gutenberg's printing press, many books were printed and knowledge spread quickly across Europe. At the same time, people like Leonardo da Vinci created new knowledge by studying nature. Leonardo made art look more real, invented new machines, and had many new ideas. As time passed, thinkers like Galileo learned to challenge old ideas. They saw that even the ancient Greeks had different ideas about the nature of the universe. Aristarchus believed the earth moved around the sun. Aristotle didn't. Galileo looked at nature to find the answer. What was the result of all of this? It was an explosion of art and creativity. It was a new beginning for knowledge and science. It was the bringing together of art and science for making beautiful, powerful, and sometimes terrible inventions. It was the Renaissance.